Hi, this is Robin with Formidable's compliance team, and I wanted to thank you so much for watching this quick and what we hope will be instructional video for you. Some of the topics that we want to discuss is what it means to be the difference for your property. What that means is not only are we an affordable housing community, but what sets us apart from just being a typical apartment community, and how can we be the difference? We're also going to quickly discuss the knowledge base, what that exactly contains, which is the help desk support tickets and how you submit those. Um, that's where you'll submit any questions, help that you need with specifically formidable guidance and help. Entrada is separate, HDS is separate. You still want to reach out to your regional property supervisor, or you can ask Formidable's compliance, your file reviewer, and they'll tell you exactly who it is that you need to contact if you have questions on a technical nature. We'll also discuss file review reminders. We get a lot of questions about those VAWA forms, so we'll touch quickly on that, as well as we'll go over some quick policy reminders. So, what does it mean to be the difference for Formidable? Not only are you an apartment community, you are an apartment community that operates sometimes under several different housing programs. And not only does that make us a little bit different than the typical apartment community, but we ourselves can be the difference. We can have positive attitudes. We can be accepting of all others. And most importantly, we need to be kind. But to be the difference, we are excited to have you on board Formidable. As you know, Formidable has a brand new compliance team, so we're rolling out a lot of changes, a lot of new things, and everyone has to do their part to provide quality, affordable housing to all of our residents. While some of our property team members have been at the property for several years, there are those that are brand new. And sometimes that's why we have to go over the same topics that maybe we've already gone over before, but maybe you didn't catch something, or maybe there's someone new. It doesn't hurt to be a refresher. Whatever your tenure, though, we're glad you're here and we're willing to make a difference. But we also want to remind you that you want to be able to be the difference. Not only are the residents, owners, and your supervisors holding you accountable, but your roles are so much bigger than just being an assistant a manager, associate manager, a resident manager, a compliance person, an operations specialist. You are just so valuable to your property. HUD, rural development, state housing agencies, local housing agencies, IRS, and syndicators are making sure we are all accountable. And what can you do? Well, you can be the difference. You might be asking yourself, how? By knowing the latest industry news, making sure you're up to date on policies and program requirements, and following the compliance training that we're offering the majority of our properties through Zephyrt. If you're not sure if you are involved with Zephyrt, then you need to reach out to your regional property supervisor, your RPS, or you can always reach out to myself, Robin, directly. And you, by doing this, can become a greater difference. We ask our applicants and residents to comply. We also need to ensure our team is being flexible enough for improvement, and we also need to comply ourselves. Just because things were done a certain way in the past doesn't mean it's wrong. All we're asking is that we need to improve moving forward. Change is so difficult, but oh my goodness, is it so necessary. We're trying to minimize bombarding you with information because there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be thrown at you. But we're going to try to keep communication mainly to the knowledge base, and you'll find that located on Formidable's help desk. Formidable Forms. This is just a heads up. It's very important. All Formidable Forms, web shortcuts, will be going away soon. Oh my goodness. So make sure to check Knowledge Base frequently because we're going to be adding new information continually. So not only is web shortcuts, Formidable Forms going away, but we're also going to start rolling out all of your forms to be available to you, whether you use Entrada or whether you use HDS. So how do you access this help desk? You go to your desktop on your computer, and you should have a little star that looks just like here on this blue background, and it says Formidable Help Desk. That's a shortcut that you can click on, and it should take you directly to Welcome to Formidable's Help Desk Center. Also, if you're on Google Chrome, you can type in the address bar helpdesk.formidable.com, and that will take you directly to the help desk. Once you're there, if you're not logged in and you forgot how to get logged in, you'll see that you don't need to enter your username. You don't need to enter a password. All you need to do is click on the white button with the red lettering that says SAML. It's already set up in your computer that once you hit that button, you will automatically be logged in to the help desk. So now we're going to talk about some of things that are changing. And one of the things that is changing are move-ins. If you have a waiting list, it's very important. We used to have people come in and they would ask for an application, and we would give them our 7-page application. And they would look at it and it would be overwhelming. And not only is it overwhelming, like I said, it's 7 pages. That's a lot of paper. We're going to make it a little bit more simple for our residents, especially if we don't have any apartments available at that time. We do have a waiting list, though. How do we put them on a waiting list? It doesn't matter if you're a public housing property, if you're a layered property, or you're a tax credit only property. They can fill something out that we have available now on Entrada for print on demand, as well as in HDS, called a pre-application. Now, we're not going to make this available to you anywhere else, but only through Entrada and through HDS. And the reason why it's only going to be available in these 2 locations is that what if we start using the form and, like we said, change isn't easy, we have to change something. You're going to have the most up-to-date form available to you on Entrada or in HDS that you can pull. We do not want you to save, and please listen to me when I say this, we do not want you to save this application, and it's called a pre-application. Please do not save this form anywhere on your properties. Desktop, don't print it out and have copies available. I mean, if it's the same day, you can print 2 or 3, but don't print any more than that. Down at the bottom right corner of the form will always have the most recent date of the application version or form version. But it's really important that you go to these 2 locations, and on Formidable website, I'm sorry, not the website, but the help desk, you have just instructions on how to pull these forms, just for a quick friendly reminder for you. If you have these move-ins, or I'm sorry, if you have these applications and somebody comes and they apply for an apartment, instead of asking them to fill out the 7-page application to get them put on the waiting list, all they need to do is fill out this, and you can put it on 2 papers or you can leave it on the 1 paper and do front and back side. All they need to do is fill out the application, this pre-app. This pre-app has all of the questions that are necessary to be added to the property's waiting list. When a unit becomes available, At that time is when you can notify the applicant that they can come in and complete a full application at their intake interview. And that full application then will be 120 days. If there's immediate availability, the applicant can complete, though, the normal full application. However, we have a lot of people that just come in and they just want to pick up an application. It's fine to pick up this pre-app and have them fill out. You put them on the waiting list, has all of this information on the waiting list. It has all of the questions being asked that actually go on our waiting list, whether it be an Excel spreadsheet in Entrata or in HDS. Keep in mind, though, that we're starting to improve our processes, so we really want to get you familiar with asking all of these questions that's asked on the pre-app so that we can fill out our waiting lists correctly. But you don't need a 7-page application to put them on a waiting list. It is quite acceptable to use this pre-app, and it doesn't matter what housing program that you operate under. Also, these papers, because you can hold them for so long and it's not the full application, when somebody comes in, when we have an apartment available and you've working your waiting list, when they fill out that 7-page application process, it will be within 120 days. So no longer will it be out of date or expired, and we have to make corrections to that. Ideally, a current resident will provide a proper notice when they're going to move out. So you can process all the necessary application of verifying income and assets. Not to mention, you can get your file reviewed before the unit even becomes available. Too often, even with the waiting list, the applications are taking over 30 days to process. They have been seen even going beyond 120 days. This makes supporting documentation expired and the process has to be restarted. Please note that once you get all the documentations back, you must send up to file review for Formidable's compliance for review to get the okay to proceed. Now, what this means to you is that the normal process for completing an application is this. Remember, we're going to be on a waiting list. It's our goal that we never have apartments available. We only rent our apartments if we have a unit that is on notice. Wouldn't that be awesome? I think it would. So an applicant's going to come in and they're going to ask for an apartment. And remember, we don't have anything available at the moment because we're on a waiting list. So we ask them to complete the pre-application. We go on to HDS or Entrata. We print the paper off. We give it to the resident. They can either sit in our office and complete it, or you can send them on their merry way and ask them to bring it back to us. Once the applicant brings the application back to us, we then enter it into our waiting list, whether it be on an Excel spreadsheet, through Entrata, or through HDS. Then we file it in a drawer and we wait until we have availability. Once we have availability, we notify the applicant that they have so many days to come in and complete an application and to begin the process to verify residency, employment, income, asset, all that good stuff. And then we submit it to compliance. Compliance, as just so you know, Formidable reviewers are being held to a 24 to 48-hour window to review the file and provide further correction information needed, or they are to provide the okay to proceed. So we want to make sure that you're always following the checklist. Now, it's very important that I also point out, excuse me. I have a lot of questions about this application. I'm seeing on the application that, they're started back in August, and here it is March, and we're just now doing the documentation. We're verifying the income, we're verifying the assets. Whoa, that's 120 days from when you initially accepted the application. What's taken so long? When we're going through the application process, we're now required to keep a log, the file reviewers are. And it's my responsibility, as well as other file reviewers, to go through that log and to make sure that the applications are being viewed, the files are being viewed. If formidable file reviewers are held to a 24 to 48 hour standard to touch the files, we want to make sure that as the site, you are sending your files in as soon as possible. Our residents are required to give a 30 to 60-day notice. And if that's the case, that's when we grab these pre applications and start working our waiting list. We call the people in. It gives them plenty of time to get in, to complete what I have called the application intake process, which is then completing the full application and getting all of your income and assets verified. If there's anything that you send to compliance and they have 24 to 48 hours to review your file, you have 5 days to turn it around back to us. When it comes to interim and annual certifications, we want you to note that once a file has been submitted to Formidable File Reviews, the file reviewer has 72 hours to respond with corrections needed or for the okay to proceed. So if you have a new move-in file, the file reviewer has 24 to 48 hours to look at that move-in file and to get it back to you if it's an okay to proceed or if you need to give corrections. If you have an interim or an annual certification that's being processed, we do give the file reviewer a little bit more time to process it, but we're only giving them 72 hours to respond with corrections needed or the okay to proceed. It's very important that I print out to you, or point out, I should say, please do not include the tick until you get the okay to proceed. Please do not print out or even process in your software system until you get the okay to proceed a tenant income certification or a tick or whatever you call it in that state that you're operating in, or your 50058 or 50059, depending on your programs. Do not print out the actual income certification until compliance gives you the okay to proceed. You are supposed to do everything on the checklist except for the tick and except for the 50058, and my apologies, it's also the 3560-8 if you are a rural development property. Do not print that out until you're given the okay to proceed. When you're doing your documentation and you're following the checklist, you can complete everything that you need to know through that income worksheet or through your calculator tapes. That's the information that's going to be approved, that actually, once it has been approved, will be moved over and put onto the tick. So many times the sites are doing the tick and they're forgetting to go in and make the necessary corrections, if any were needed, to the tenant income certification or the 50058, 50059, 3560-8. They're going ahead and we used to ask you to print it off and send it into compliance. What I've found though is that corrections, if they're given back to the site, you need to fix this, you need to correct that. The sites were fixing it, they were correcting it, but they weren't fixing it they were not fixing it on the actual tenant income certification or through the software. So they were just changing the dates and printing it out. And then, therefore, the tenant income certification did not match the supporting documentation in the file. So not only did it not match, but if we were to do a gross rent in change and submit that through HUD, if we were submitting your MINC, your voucher through to our rural development for payment, or we're sending in your 50058 through PIC, You had the incorrect information, the wrong rent amount, the wrong income information was being provided. Also, if you're putting in the wrong information on your TICs in your LIHTC Section 42 tax credit property, that was what was getting submitted to the state's website for the online reporting. That's also wrong. We want to make sure that you're 100% correct and good to go. So do not include the tick. Do not print, do not process the tick until you get the okay to proceed. And since you're using software, either HDS or Entrata, if we need to view for accuracy prior to, we can access the software to run a trial tick. We will not review the tick until the final approval, so no need to include it for move-ins or ARs. You so that just contradicted a lot of what I just said. However, here's the caveat: HDS doesn't allow you to run a trial, so it won't work with HDS. And my apologies. It will work with Entrata, and it says you can run the trial. Here's the thing: I don't want you to though. Some people do. I find that you can, and then you can reverse it. I don't want to see a tick. I don't want to know that you processed a tick. Anything that you do in our software, there is tracking through activity logs in the software. So if you don't do it, you can't say, oh, yeah, no, I didn't run it. And then we look at the activity and say, yeah, you did when we find an error. Just get in the habit of not doing it, and then we'll all be good. So the final file review reminders if there are corrections needed for either a move-in, interim, or annual. The property once again has 5 days to make the correction and respond back to compliance. We are seeing that too many small corrections are holding up the files from obtaining the okay to proceed. Remember, for a move-in, compliance file reviews have 24 to 48 hours to respond and to look at your move-in files. We have 72 hours to look at your annual certifications as well as your interim certifications. This is also if you are a public housing or rural development property, a Section 8 property. This is because you do have to give a 30-day notice increase if there are any changes with an interim or an annual certification. This, by not returning items within 5 days from file review, they send it back. Okay, we need this done, we need that done, this needs corrected. If the site doesn't turn it around within 5 days and get it back to us, this really makes a recertification overdue. So moving forward, it was in the past that the file review would stop and say, you can't do this until you fix these little tiny corrections. So we were having the applicant or the resident come in like several times during the process, and that's really annoying. It's really annoying as the resident. It's really annoying for you as the office team member because you're trying to make excuses of why you didn't get it. So we're trying to minimize and making it easier for everyone by just saying that for any small corrections, such as obtaining a signature or date that will not hold up setting an appointment with your prospect or resident to get documents signed and dated at the same time. We're asking our prospects and residents to come back, like I said, too many times during the certification process. And it's really frustrating. So on the file review submission form, it's updated with new fields. The new fields, there is a section on there that we want you to keep in mind that if you're printing off a new file review submission form and compliance approval checklist every time you process a new certification. So when you print off a file review submission form and compliance approval checklist, print off a clean one each new file that you do. If you're sending corrections back, you just need to complete and send back the compliance approval checklist. You do not need to keep doing the file review form. At another time, we will check back and hit this topic again. Don't save it on your computer. because the correct version of the form is dated at the bottom, and your file reviewer will know if you're using the wrong version. Like I said, please don't save it to your desktop. Don't print it out to keep extra copies on hand. It's set up in a way that you can always go to your computer and print off a fresh one each time if you're making appointments. This gives you time before you call the applicant or resident in to complete their paperwork so you're not scrambling. Remember to not upload the final lease and backup documentations until after you receive that approved stamp. Moving on, we're getting a lot of questions about the VAWA forms because if you notice that's on the checklist. And yes, we're having people say, well, I had them sign the VAWA form when they moved in. You're only supposed to have them sign it one time. And that is true. However, I've found too many times there's a property team turnover or new properties coming on with Formidable, and the forms are not being obtained at move-in. So rather than tear the file apart and look to see if they actually signed one at move-in, why not just have certainty that you just have them re-sign a new form? Also, it's a refresher to the VAWA rules, so it's best practice. Just have them sign a new form. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to kill them. They can sign it when they sign the final paperwork for their recertification. So, policy reminders. This is the last step. There's an inspection policy. On the checklist, it says that you're to include annual inspection forms. Where do you find these annual inspection forms? Because you may already have your move-in inspection form, but you're really required to inspect your properties. If not on a quarterly basis, you are required to inspect them on an annual basis. Doesn't matter what program you're in. Now that COVID is over, or I should say now that it's not as prevalent as it was in the beginning, we're getting back into the properties. We're starting to be inspected again through REAC, through the state auditors, through the insurance companies, syndicators. We want to make sure that our properties, our units, the residents are keeping up with them. And it's really, really telling when we fail with poor housekeeping, roaches, that we're not doing the annual unit inspections like we're supposed to. So to get us in habit, a lot of managers will inspect at the same time as the annual recertification. You have 120 days to go out and to inspect them, and you can set up appointments, give your 24-hour notice at that time. So technically, the resident may get inspected several times during the year, because not only are you doing your inspection, but you have your state, you have your government people coming in and inspecting the apartment. But the only thing that you can do is just be kind, be sweet, tell them that at least we're keeping up with your property. You don't want to live anywhere where your the owners don't take pride, or we don't take pride, or where you don't take pride. We want everybody to have a safe and clean and healthy living environment. You will find those inspection forms and how to access them. There's a tutorial video on Formidable as help desk knowledge base on how to pull those inspection policies, whether it be on HDS or Entrata. The next thing that we have are people add or remove household members. There are policies that need to be adhered to. Those are on, once again, the help desk. Make sure that you visit that if you have any questions. It should answer a lot of your questions that you might have regarding what to do if you're adding or removing a household member. How do you screen an applicant in Entrata to run their credit and criminal? There is a helpful direction tutorial on there as well. If you have a cover letter for the pre-screening application. Somebody comes in, wants an application, you're talking to somebody at the moment. People are not always patient. They do not always wait their turn. You can go in and quickly print this off and give them all the information. They ask you a lot of questions. Anything you need to know is written on that that sample cover letter for pre-screening. There's a sample on there. All you need to do is tweak it, make it appropriate for your property. How do you electronically reach out to an applicant in Entrata if you're a program that uses Entrata? A lot of our leads come in through Entrata. It does not matter if you're an affordable property. You treat them the same as if you're a conventional property. You can, now that there's so many programs available, you can actually reach out, and you don't need to call them on the phone necessarily. You can have written documentation by accessing them through the portal. How to upload an approved file to either HDS or Entrata. There's also going to be a quick video on the help desk for you there. So I had somebody reach out and say, I don't really quite remember how to upload an approved final approval file on HDS or Entrata. And there's a quick tutorial on the website, the help desk, that will show you how to do that too. Meet the compliance team. You talk to us on the phone all the time. You see us in email, but you don't know what our friendly faces look like. Here we are. You've got Ted. He does a few of the properties. Tanya, Lorraine, Katrina, and there's Robin smack dab in the middle. We are reviewing your files. We also have an outside contractor that we use for some of the public housing and rural development properties named Matt Malia, who was with Formidable once upon a time, and he is still around helping us out. But we're trying to bring, just so you know, compliance more in-house, because we want to make sure that we're all on the same page. We don't have one company telling you to do this and that, and then another person telling you to do this and that another way. We just ask that you be flexible. I know that there's a lot of changes. I know that there's a lot of information needed to know. I know that you're going to have questions, and not everything is going to be perfect the first time we roll it out. So I encourage feedback. I encourage you letting me know. We just all want to be kind to each other. We know that change is not easy. And even as the file reviewer, it's hard to tell how people feel in regards to tone when they answer a question through email. Just remember that we're all being kind. We're all on the same team. We're Team Formidable. We have one goal for our properties, and that's to keep our residents in compliance, meaning that they actually qualify and remain eligible to live there, that we're maintaining the properties for our owners, and we are making sure that everything is being done correctly. If you have any questions, I know that this was kind of quick and fast. Feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to your file reviewer. Feel free to reach out to your regional. We are trying to make Formidable a great place to call home and to work, and it's only done with our team. There's no I in team. It takes all of us. You can't bail a sinking ship with just one person bailing us out. It takes all of us to bail us out. I'm not saying that we're a sinking ship. Sometimes it feels like we're going down, but we don't want to. And we don't want to just float. We actually want to row the boat. So crazy, corny analogies. That's me. Funny, crazy, but it's compliance. It's Formidable, and we're glad you're here. And we're hoping that you let us know if you have any questions. Thanks.